Hi, friends. Logan Clements here with the Better Events podcast. And this week, I'm joined by a new guest co host, Vanessa Loney. And we are diving more into a topic that has come pretty top of mind for me about just staying relevant in the event industry. We talk about the aspects of being relevant from building relationships to going to actual networking and industry events to having a presence on LinkedIn. And no matter if you're someone who is new to the industry and trying to build your reputation and stay relevant, or if you are someone who been around in the industry for years and you're just trying to hold on and stay relevant in this quick moving industry, we have something in here for you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and this week I'm joined by an exciting new guest co-host. But before I introduce her, I do want to remind you that Mary and I recorded an on-demand workshop that is all about how to start an event planning business. We get this question all the time in our inbox and our DMs, so we decided to create a 5-hour on-demand course that you can take at your own pace. It is available for purchase if you just click the show notes. We have a bunch of free templates included in that paid course, everything from like Mary's pricing calculator to both of our different versions of contracts, all these tools that we wish we had when we first got started. So I want to highly encourage you to click on that. So without further ado, I am excited to introduce this next guest co-host who's going to be with me for the next few episodes. It is none other than the Vanessa Loney. You might recognize her from other episodes on the podcast. She has been a friend of the pod. But if you haven't met Vanessa, for over 16 years, Vanessa Loney has been the mastermind behind some of the most extravagant festivals, corporate events, and social galas, catering to an exclusive roster of celebrities, business executives, and nonprofits. With a personality that's as unforgettable as the events she creates, Vanessa's ability to turn visions into reality is unmatched. Known for her visionary thinking, she is a true innovator who always has her eyes on what's next, inspiring both her clients and her team, which I have been able to be a part of a couple times. So, Vanessa, anything else you'd love to add to your lovely bio?
No, that was perfect. Hearing about yourself is it's kind of weird. And so thank you so much, though, for highlighting some of the things that we forget along the way. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Vanessa. So as normal, we like to start with a conversation starter. It gets us warmed up, gets our listeners thinking as well. So I would love to know, Vanessa, what's your current comfort choice, whether it's like a show you watch all the time or a food or a routine?
Yeah,
What's bringing you
so
comfort?
reality TV is my comfort. And so right now, currently, $1 Million Secret on Netflix is my jam. And so essentially they release, I think, 3 to 4 episodes every week. And it is really and truly like a who has the $1 million that week. And just to see everyone trying to figure out almost like a who done it is my favorite, similar to Traders. Those type of shows, I love it because I also am just like, how would I be a liar? How would I lie? Well, so that currently is my comfort show. How about you? What is your comfort show or comfort thing?
Yeah, I like my brain goes to food, but I will say to comment on yours, I did watch season 1, while I was on a plane in the last couple weeks. I can highly recommend. We will link it in the show notes for folks. Mine is, I'm traveling so much in this season right now. Mine is definitely food, and I'm not a cook. And so it is specifically, I say I cook these, but I don't actually make them, but they are the Trader Joe's dumplings, the pot stickers. I have perfected like frying them on the bottom and steaming them on the top. And I literally just make myself like a big bowl of dumplings. And that is my at home, in air quotes, listeners, if you can't see me, of cooking, because it's a frozen thing that I'm heating, but I'm cooking it. And that is definitely within 48 hours of being at home. I will make that, whether it is for dinner or for lunch. It's just the Trader Joe's pork pot stickers from their freezer section.
Yes. I mean, that is cooking. I don't even have a frying pan, which I'm a little shameful to say, but you are a step ahead. So kudos to you and your dumplings.
Yeah, I call it, it's like, I saw it's like lazy cooking, but I've reframed it and I was like, it's like easy cooking, just a minimal step. So,
Yeah. What is it? Girl dinner, they
yeah,
say.
exactly.
Yeah.
That I also do a lot of having just like cheese and nibbles. So, but yes, hopefully, listeners, you've thought about something that's bringing you comfort in this season, whether you're busy or slowing down here in the summer. But a little bit about why we talked about this, pick this topic for this week. Uh, Vanessa and I both, as business owners, I feel like have had to deal with this about staying relevant, both from a business development standpoint, but also just like in a professional development standpoint. And so we really think this topic would apply to all of you, anyone listening, whether you're trying to remain relevant, you've been around for years, or if you're someone who's new and you're just trying to like get your foot in the door in the event industry. And it's hopefully this will give you a little bit more like intention and awareness around how you can stay relevant, because it is something that's constantly evolving. I feel like if we recorded this episode, 5-6 years ago, it would probably sound a little different than what the advice we're going to give right now. But I'm also excited to learn from you, Vanessa, of what you're doing, because I feel like I see you out and about doing all kinds of stuff on LinkedIn. So when you think about staying relevant, we like to start broad on the pod. What does that actually mean to you? Is staying relevant visibility, credibility, relationships, something else entirely?
Yeah, I see it as relationships. I think that's the core of it. Relationship building, an actual someone that you can reach out to, right? That's top of mind if you need something, and not so much just if you need something, but even if it's just advice or a tidbit or, where can I find? I think it starts with the relationship building, and that's not just your peers. I also think it's the vendors, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that, but I think the core of it is really that genuine relationship building. And then that kind of leads into the credibility and all of the other visibility. But I think the core is still relationship building.
I feel like I'd add to that too. It's like the relationships, but then I also the experience to back it up. That is one, and I will acknowledge here on the podcast, is probably a fear of mine as I get more experience, is I always want to stay in touch with the details. If I start letting someone else do parts of that process, I'm like, I still need to be aware of what's happening so that my advice and my relationships with people is still like relevant to what we're doing. But yeah, I think it really comes down to relationships. I think about in my business how I stay relevant in some of the work I do with like my sporting events, and I always say they're jobs that never get posted online. They are purely relational based, where yes, maybe they will review multiple candidates, but it's somebody's thinking of me and asking me to send them my resume, my CV offline. It's not a job post on LinkedIn that I get to apply for with hundreds of other people. So
yeah, that's exactly it. Is you want to stay top of mind, right? Like that is the goal when we think about as entrepreneurs, even as freelancers, you're trying to get the next gig, or you're trying to, put something in the pipeline for the future. And so you are almost investing in future you. And so that's what the relationship building, when you go to any of these events, and we'll talk about that later, but you really want to put yourself out there for not the version of you right now, but maybe 2 months from now when work is slow and you do need to be put on. So that's just something I always keep in the back of my mind as I'm looking out for future Vanessa.
I love that reframe. I'm like thinking of future you. You're always nicer to future you than you probably are to current you, which is an interesting challenge. But yeah, I've heard some people even name future them. They give them like an older person's name so you can like actually think of them. But I was like, I've definitely just done future Logan in my head.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, now I'm like, what would my future old lady self in 6 months be? Is it Veronica? It has to be a V. I was
gonna say it could be like a play on your own name. Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Veronica.
You're like Miss Veronica out here. We got to do well for her.
That's it.
We got to take care of her, make sure she's doing okay. We both talked about relationships here, but like, what does a successful networking interaction look like for you in your experience, Vanessa? Is it like a specific approach you have when you meet new people? What's networking?
It's so interesting. My personality type, I like to call myself an extroverted introvert. And I'm sure other people would not view it that way because I am very outgoing. But I have to put a lot of energy into getting to that point. And so it's so funny when I get to networking events, maybe that first night, if it's a kickoff event, I'm always like, okay, Vanessa, you can do this. Like I just have to rev myself up to do it. Once I'm in it, I'm a shining star, but it really and truly is self-talk and knowing that you belong in spaces and you have a lot to offer in those spaces and not psyching yourself out, especially when I first started out. It just, you always question, like, should I be here? Like, do I have anything to offer in a conversation, in a relationship building? Now it's the confidence. It's knowing that I have something to offer to a relationship, to start of any conversation, and really just being able to be myself. Because when you overthink it and you start to think of like talking points and all of those things, it's not genuine. And I think that's what the start of a networking or a relationship building is being you. That's the version of you that's going to show up in future self. That's the version of you that's going to show up at these events. And so I'd rather start it off that way and just be myself. And so curious what your thoughts are on the same topic. What does that look like for you?
I need you in my back pocket for any networking event I'm going to go. I want that as like a pep talk. We're going to clip that. You got to go back because I struggle with like traditional networking. Let's go to a networking reception and network. And I will say I both struggle at them. And then I will say I haven't seen a ton of return off of that. The way I would think about how I network, it's more I'm getting better at if I work with someone networking, like maintaining that relationship after we've worked together. So it's been like proof of concept of like, they saw I was good at what I did. They're good at what they did. Now I'm making sure I like add them on LinkedIn. I'm sending them a note, or even just the LinkedIn adding alone is like leaps and frogs ahead of other people, because it's like, now you're going to see my updates. I'll see your updates. We can like stay passively top of mind. And that has actually led to tangible work. Same thing with emailing, or we've talked about on the podcast before. I do love my like handwritten thank you notes and some chocolates, especially for the people who were in the position that like hired me. And that to me is both trying to genuinely thank them for working together, but also like, hey, top of mind, hope let's work again together. So that's kind of where I go with when it's like a networking reception. I definitely can get in my own head. Like I really do. And I don't know how you've like gotten into that place of understanding like you can own that space, or if that's just come with time.
I think it comes with time. And I think what you were saying earlier about the return on that investment, right? For me, and I think it's interesting because I have been to a networking event with you. I don't want to say the name of it, when we were in a different location. And we all kind of got spread out between the different hotels. I'm trying to see if you remember that event. And you were at a hotel that was not great, but you had a shared experience with other people that even to this day, if you mention that event and you were like, I was at that hotel and someone else was, that's a shared experience that no one else has, that like you could keep capitalizing off of that within our industry. And so what I found for myself is that it's not about, the professional development, great. It's about the people. It's the people aspect of this. If we can laugh and joke about the thing that happened to us both. And that's what you're going to remember. You're going to remember me based off of that thing that happened. And the fact that I remember the thing that happened to you, we already are friends, but I remember it. And so I just think that this, take those little tidbits of things that have happened within events industry or with event people. When we talk about, I think it was IMAX a few years ago, and it was Mary's first IMAX. And, she was over planning our experience. And I'm like, you got to let it happen organically because you're going to find friends along the way. And that's sure enough, that's what happened, right? It's genuine connections that I think I see the return on investments. We have worked together on various projects. Mary and I have worked together on various projects, but it's because I genuinely like you as a person, right? Like Logan, you and I, we worked together virtually, didn't meet for the first time until 2 years ago. And so it really is the likability part of networking that I thrive off of, because I'm going to remember you, even from like a contractor perspective. I value people that I like to work with outside of their skill sets. And so that's kind of the stance that I take when I approach these events.
Thank you for reminding me. I must have really blocked that experience out of my head of that. Yeah, listeners, it was a hilarious experience of comparing other planners in multiple different housing situations, and mine was vastly below everybody else's. But
Yeah.
that is true. I have gone to and I guess my next question in here was just thinking about there are so many conferences, mixers, industry events out there. How do you know which ones to go to and which ones to skip? Especially as a planner, even if you're in-house, but especially externally, I'm like, as an independent contractor, I'm missing out on event work and I'm paying to go to something. But I went to IPEC, which is North Star's independent planner conference. And I remember my most memorable networking was at activities. I signed up for the offsites that they did. We went, it was like a high ropes course that wasn't too high in the air, but that process itself bonded, several of us. And that was kind of fun to then bring them to the two people I'd bonded with during check-in when there was a puppy experience. We were all petting puppies next to each other. And it was like, oh, hi, here's my tightrope walking friends and my puppy friends. Let's all sit together at lunch. But it was activities versus being go into a room and just network.
Agreed. Yeah, it is when there's a shared experience. And me, I love a good food, something, or if something didn't taste good, or it doesn't have to be a fully planned activity. It could just be a shared anything. And I think just take those little moments and just see how you can capitalize off of that. That has seemed to have worked for me. But for events, I think going back to your question of how to know which events to even attend and which to skip, I think that comes with time. In the beginning of my career, I really was attending everything because that's what they tell you to do. They want you to be everywhere in every space. And I think as the years have gone on, I have started to dwindle down on the ones that I attend. I'm very intentional about where I put my time. And so even for IMEX, I know that those that know the industry and know that event, that is an industry staple. But for me now, I do it every other year. It is a lot of energy, and it's a time-consuming week. And then after the week, you have to decompress. And so it's really a 2-week event if you think about it. And so for me, I think every other year is enough for me to feel like I'm getting enough out of it. And then you really have to be intentional when you're going. This is my personal opinion, I don't know that the meetings that you're having, the scheduled meetings, if you're being hosted, are enough to really relationship build, right? If the core of what I think networking is and staying relevant is relationship building, that is almost just like the start. That's the intro to that. You have to continue to foster that. And so for me, the real ROI out of that are the receptions, are the after the actual trade show. That's to me is the bulk of why I go. And so for me, I don't need to go every year to do that. And so that one specifically, I started to dwindle on that. And then now I'm going to a little bit more specialized, if it's luxury retreats, because I'm starting to get more into luxury retreats, really more niche events versus industry-wide events. And that has seemed to work really well for me in the last couple of years. So that's my stance on that is time will tell you which events you should and should not be attending.
Yeah, I think it is interesting because it is an evolution and thinking if you keep going to the same events, would you get the same results? But I think you tapped on something so important there is we do have a finite amount of energy and time. And so figuring out don't feel pressured to do everything. If you have, when you're just getting into this and you have all the time and resources, sure, go to all the events and talk to all the people. But I know I'm still a member of my local MPI group here in Washington State. I can't necessarily go to all of their monthly activities, but I've tried to make an effort twice a year to go to them. But the sessions I've gotten the most out of, they've started doing these smaller planner roundtables where it was an hour before the social. We went and sat literally around a table and talked about things that were top of mind for us as planners and kind of comparing and contrasting our challenges and doing some solution doing that. I was that was great. And actually then the reception, to your point, was nice because I was I can build on that conversation I started having versus going to those events without doing that and just walking in a room. I know even as an extroverted extrovert to copy, even as I don't love those, because that to me, it's I struggle getting beyond the surface level. And then, but also have been challenging myself to try to get beyond surface level and then seeing who I'm who meets me there. And I definitely have had a little bit of success. It's just uncomfortable in the last couple months of like pushing myself to be like, let's ask more than just, what do you do? Where are you from? What's the company you work for? And like, how are you doing? What's actually, exciting about what your job right now? What's a challenge? Or,
Yeah, I think uncomfortable. That I think is why a lot of people do not do these networking events, is because it is uncomfortable. And you have to get outside of the house and not watch Netflix to converse with others. And so it takes a lot. It takes a lot of, your why. What is the reason? Why do I need to be at this event? What am I trying to get out of it? And I think if you continue to just remind yourself of your why, that uncomfortability, if you do it enough, it'll stop being as uncomfortable. But I think you hit it right on the head of why some people do not attend networking events. It's because it's not a natural way to meet people. And then I'll side note that's how dating is, but that's a whole nother podcast episode.
Definitely, but it would be the same. And also, like, I was just thinking about this. I had a call with a college student the other day that I was kind of surprised at and a little disappointed, because I wanted them to come prepared, because that was one thing that was like networking. I think some people go to a reception and just expect the networking will happen to me. Like, I will be networked with. And it's like, no, actually the people like yourself, Vanessa, who are getting the most out of these, you're intentional. You're going into it, not saying like, I have to talk to this person, but it's like, maybe you're telling yourself, I have to talk to like 3 new people, or like, I want to continue this conversation with that person I saw in that session. But you're like actively, you have agency that you are making the most of that session. And that's where I found, on hindsight, I've had bad experiences. And it's like, what was I doing? I talked to the 2 people I already knew. And then I just kind of stood there. Like, of course, I'm not going to meet any new people, versus the times when I go in with the like, all right, Logan, we're doing the uncomfortable thing. Let's talk to like 3 new people. Like, let's just do it. And that's where I'm seeing that happen, versus if you just expect, in this example of this call, this person, this discovery call they did with me, they had no questions for me. And I was like, well, I don't know much of you. Like, I can say, here's what people typically ask me, but it was just this moment where I was like, dang, just come with like 5 questions, right. And then I can build off of that. But that you have to be prepared, and you're driving that relationship and that networking piece.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, the more you do it, you'll have your kind of like flow. Now for me, this is my tip, is if it's a reception and there are high boys, I stand at a high boy, because those are usually limited. I'll stand at a high boy, and someone's going to come put their cup down, or can I stand here? It's the best entry to having a conversation, and it's low hanging fruit. And that's by like tried and true method, is I let them come to me, but then you have to have some talking points once that happens. And so if you are not the type that's just going to go up to a person, you don't have to. Just stand at a high boy right by the bar or right by the food. Someone will put their plate down and someone will come to you, but just be ready for when that does happen.
That's a good one, Vanessa. I like that. Let them come to you. All right. Shifting gears a bit when talking about relevant, let's talk. You mentioned vendors, and I'm intrigued because you probably work with a lot of different vendors than I do, since I'm so just in the production space. But vendors are such a big part of the event space. How intentional are you about building and maintaining some of those relationships with vendors outside of the active projects you're working on?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to some of these networking events, especially the industry wide, right? I think sometimes when we think of industry, we think it's just planners. IMEX specifically, and I'm talking about them because it's the largest industry event that most of us go to. The vendors are there. The hosted buyer events, the vendors are the ones you're actually having those meetings with. And so same kind of thought process is the receptions, those activities you're going to, those extracurricular things where you can just be a human and not my title, not a director of sales, or not I'm doing, XYZ for you. It's just me and that person connecting over a shared experience. And so I think for me, stripping down all of that, the titles and all of those things, it helps me to really have a genuine connection. And those vendors, they're doing the same thing. They also have to approach people they don't know and try to get business. And it really it's uncomfortable for them too. So that in and of itself is already a shared experience. And so I think, just really signing up for anything extra outside of the actual event itself, for me, has been really beneficial. If it is a project, even on site when we're doing project stuff, I just like to chit chat. right? I just like to, it doesn't have to be event related. I think you relationship build throughout your project, throughout the event, getting to know someone. I found out so many different things from different people. My kid is going to college here, or I'll say where I went to college and they're like, oh my gosh, my kid is going there. Like just those smaller details where I think sparking those genuine conversations really does lead to genuine relationships. And they think about you later down the road, right? A lot of these vendors, sometimes they need planners, or they're in spaces where they hear about an opportunity. I'm trying to be at the top of your mind. And I'm sure that we will, I'll be at the top of your mind because we did a duck tour in whatever city together, or whatever we did together. And that's, I think, has been really successful for me, is those shared experiences with vendors as well.
I like that tie into some of the networking events where, or just industry events that you can get some of that good face time. I think for me, it would be, on site is really the core part. I like your idea of chit chatting. I do feel like anytime you can humanize, my favorite question, even if on the production side, if you're working with like an in-house AV vendor, just even with your tech, like your operators, because you've probably been dealing with a salesperson this whole time, like just humanizing your operators of like, when you have a quiet moment before speakers come in of just like, what do you like to do outside of operating here? And it's like, I find out one of my guys who does the video actually really loves audio, and like some other cool stuff. Like it was just kind of, what do you do when you're not here? It helps just build some of that rapport and that relationship. And maybe I'll never end up working with that person again, but like you're seeing me beyond you just operate and I just show call. And then, trying to thank them too. That's in any way. My current shtick is having chocolate at my show calling station that is open to anyone and everyone, client who's paying me, speakers, operators, whoever. And that one, again, is just, I feel like trying to create that relationship. I'm not the best, I would say, probably outside of, I do tend to like post event, always try to do a wrap up call with a vendor that I've worked with, especially if I was responsible for like them getting hired and things, try to write them a Google review if that's relevant to their business. And then ask them, to your point, Vanessa, of also like, do you know of anyone else who could use my services? That's always helpful, just to let them know you're open to kind of business development coming the other way. And then, just keeping them on my rotation of like staying in contact. If it's even just saying soft hold for next year, if I know the date, and, being honest and just being upfront with them about when I could give them an update, if any, to try to kind of keep that relationship going.
Yeah, I think you're so good at being intentional about that. Even with me, like that follow up, because I'm terrible in general with follow up, and so I think you do a really great job of it not feeling pushy or salesy. Of just like, hey, my calendar's filling up. If you have any availability or have anything in the pipeline, let me know. Or I have openings, let me know. I think you just really do a great job of that. And I want to do better at doing that, because I'll create the relationships, right? And we will be friends and it'll be great. And then I don't follow up, or I get really consumed in my own world and I forget to, respond to a follow up. So I do think there's power in that follow up. It's not just meeting the person, but it's also, what do you do later down the road? Because if you're looking at your future self might not need anything for 8 months. But if you've not maintained or had a touch point with that person, that networking it falls short because you've not really stayed relevant. So kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Doesn't always feel like I'm doing it, but I mean, and I would love to talk a little bit about social media here, about relevancy, because my pro tip for listeners, and I literally have to make this a to-do item. I just did this for a show I worked 2 months ago. I finally went in and was like, go and add everyone on LinkedIn. Mainly because I am using LinkedIn as like a serious search engine tool for myself, because my running bit with anybody I'm working with is like, I don't know what I need until I need it, and I need it in a week. So it's like, I don't have time to manually scrub emails. And yes, maybe there's AI tools that could help me with this, but I found maybe I didn't write the city that we worked with together in an email anywhere. So it's not going to come up when I search Milwaukee. It's not going to come up that you and I work together in Milwaukee, but I can go on LinkedIn and I can quickly see who's in Milwaukee. I could also see maybe someone I worked with in LA has now moved to Milwaukee and I can use them. Like, that is a great place that folks are naturally keeping their like location, what they're doing, what they're up to date. And the only way you're going to kind of know and have them pop up when you're doing that search is if you added them. So I'm always it's not always appropriate with like all my speakers that I work with. I do not do that. But for like clients, other people on my team that it feels right with. And then vendors is another one where I'm like, you just don't know. You could move jobs, and it would be good for me to know that you've moved to that other job that I actually needed something from. So I just feel like that's a missing piece for a lot of people. You have this great, beautiful event on site, and then you're done and you just forget. And then you're again trying to be like, I know someone in Chicago. Why can't I think of them? And I turn to LinkedIn now. So if you are a listener and have not gone through and kind of added folks you worked with recently, it's just a really good passive tool for you to continue to help keep other people relevant to you. But also, I do think you staying relevant to others. And
agreed. Yeah, that's kind of like how I get business. The majority of my business is through LinkedIn. And I think you had said earlier when you were introducing me of like, I am always on LinkedIn or I'm posting. It's because that's where, when I meet all of these people, right, that's where they're watching me. That's where they are seeing all the things that I talked about and all the things that we chatted about in person. You're seeing it happening in real time. When I'm posting about an event that I just did, or I traveled to a certain location, I'm backing up almost what I said to you, and it wasn't just fluff. And so I do use that as my proof of purchase when thinking about a potential client. And so even when I first started, I actually curated my LinkedIn knowing that I wanted to either get into more corporate events or get into whatever that the industry was. I went to those respective pages and I added the admins and I added the marketing, because those are the people that I want to see me. And so sometimes when we ask, like, how do I find, LinkedIn is literally, I mean, I can't even imagine 20 plus years ago, for the people who didn't have access to LinkedIn, like cold calling and we have access. Like, we get to use LinkedIn. We get to add the CEO of whatever respective company to your personal LinkedIn and be relevant to them. I mean, to a certain extent relevancy, but you get to be connected in a certain way that others probably didn't have access to. So even those that are seasoned, there's a tool now that you can use that kind of removes the fluff, and like, you don't have to go to a networking event. You can actually just go on LinkedIn and just start the conversation. And so I just see LinkedIn as the best tool, and it has been really great for my ROI, for my business. And I really encourage people to curate their network, because you're nothing without your network. And I think we hear that a lot, but LinkedIn is literally just a network of opportunities and connections.
Oh, most definitely. And I mean, my pro tip for folks is like a realization I had maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point, was I didn't realize how many people passively use social media, just in general, not just LinkedIn, but all, in the sense that they didn't necessarily comment or like. And I feel like if you're new to this and you're like, Logan, Vanessa, I've never posted on LinkedIn, but when I do, no one comments, no one likes it, no one does anything. Sure, maybe no one is doing it, didn't hit the right time, but it still will show up on feeds to people. And I know this because I've had people call me or email me to hire me for an event. And they're like, we know you do this. Would you be interested in this? And I'm like, how would they know that I do this? It's like, oh, they must have seen posts that I'm doing, but I'm looking at that person's name. I'm like, they've never commented. They've never liked, I mean, I don't that closely watch it, but I'm like, they're not someone who's like regularly engaging with what I do. And yet it's working because clearly they heard of something and thought of me. So it's like, you don't have to do it for the likes. We all don't have to be influencers and posting things, but like, yes, it helps when someone reposts it. Yes, it helps if you tag that person that you like saw and met and had a good relationship with, because then it does notify their network. Like, there are good things you can do, but also don't get discouraged. Like, if no one is commenting on your stuff, because I'm like, it's still, you're putting it out there. It is still moving the needle of staying relevant and top of mind for some people.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we're in the age of lurking. And so like I post somewhat on Instagram, but I scroll, I watch, I'm not engaging. I might even follow you, but I know everything that's going on with what you've got going on. And so think about the other side of it, to your point of, yeah, they might not be engaged. You might have not seen them come across your desk, but they are watching. And I've seen people who have commented and said, I love watching your journey. And I'm like, I didn't even know, when did we meet? Like, and so you don't know who's watching. And so I think always keeping yourself updated, your profile updated, even though you might be feeling like you're talking to an audience of one, you just never know all you need is one. All you need is one person that says, I want to hire them, and that leads to the next opportunity. So, and that goes for just getting into the industry, well seasoned. You just never know who's in a new position. And I think with our industry, we're learning and we're seeing that positions are changing like every day. People who might have been at a director of sales for 20 years is now a planner, or vice versa. And now you've been on the other side, the hotel side, and now you need business. And so have you been networking, right? Have you been having those conversations? And so it just helps to just continue to keep yourself updated, because you just never know who's looking.
Yeah. And LinkedIn, again, naturally does that, because I'm like, emails bounce. People leave organizations and that email is gone. And so that email is no longer going to help you if you're trying to reach out to this person named Megan that you worked with, who now moved from company ABC to company DCE. Like that's, it's LinkedIn is a helpful tool for that. As we get to the end here, I do, Vanessa, want to get your take on our last two questions. But if someone who's listening to this has been in the industry for 20 plus years, they probably feel like they might not need to prove themselves anymore. Why should relevance still matter to them as an event pro?
Yeah, I think with technology, and I hate to say it in that way, but I think that we are a instant gratification, or information is coming to us so fast. And when we talk about relevancy, if I'm looking for, and I often do, I'm looking for a contractor or an event freelancer. There's this economy is rough. People are getting laid off. And so you want to keep your relevancy top of mind, because a person like me who's always looking, I'm on LinkedIn, right? And I'll search, maybe like you said, we'll use Milwaukee, or, Milwaukee. I need an event planner in Milwaukee. And you, as the seasoned planner, do not have a presence. I don't know anything about Milwaukee. So I'm taking the first few people who look like they got quality events, or they've done some things there, and I'm going to start the conversation with them. How can I find you as the season planner if you do not have a presence anywhere, right? A digital presence. And so for me, I'm always looking at it from you never know what could happen with this industry or with this economy, especially with this economy. And you might need a hand. And so you need to stay relevant with the new age, right? I don't want to say the new age, but the new technology and the new everything that's coming at us quickly. You should stay ahead of it, or at least be a part of it, especially if you're looking for your next opportunity. So whether it is 20 plus years or you're just getting in, I really just think that staying top of mind. You don't know who will be hiring. I think the hiring group is getting younger. The millennials are starting to be the new directors and the VPs and the CEOs, and we are using technology to find our next group. And so if you felt like you are not a part of that age range where you should be a part of technology, take that out of your mind. I think that everyone should have a presence online, so that you can be found. So
I got no notes for that one, apart from I would tell us that, like, we've already been praising LinkedIn. They should be a sponsor of this post, or this episode. But you could start with LinkedIn. Not everybody has to have a website. I don't feel like that is a need. And that is when you're talking about technology, but I think, having some digital presence of some form, whatever feels right to you. LinkedIn feels like the most professional of all of the social media platforms out there. Even a one pager of a LinkedIn or of a website could work if you're averse to a LinkedIn, but the searchability is just there. And it is, to your point, it's so much easier to build this stuff little by little, taking 15 minutes here to add people, 15 minutes there, than when you're in that full sprint of oh my gosh, I don't have a job. How do I need to pivot? Now I got to start over. That'll feel like a Herculean lift compared to if you've already started building just a little bit, and then occasionally going in and liking some stuff if you see it. It's a nice way to just, you get kind of, eat the elephant bit by bit, just do it little by little. On the flip side, Vanessa, I'm curious about what's your advice for someone breaking into the industry who feels like they have no network and no platform. How and where do they even begin?
I'm a proponent of a professional organization. So the MPI or the site or the PCMA, those are your entry points, because you really and truly, you're hungry. And that's what people who are hiring, they want to see the hunger. And so for me, when I quit my full-time job and I said, I really want to do this on my own, I had the same question. Where do you even start? And so I joined MPI, and it was a game changer. And not just join it, and again, back to what we're saying, you don't just join a thing and just everything's going to happen. You have to be intentional about what that means, because now that just means you have access. You have access to people who are in positions of power. And so that, I think, is, again, you want access. That's the goal for networking, is once you get that, then you show up and you show out. But if you're not putting yourself out there, and we always talk about digital presence, but I do think being in person for when you're first starting out is really important. Even if you're saying, hey, I just want to shadow, I just want to see what it's like to work in this industry, or to see what it's like. I'll be an extra hand. People love that. And I think that really putting your personality out there and putting yourself out there in person is invaluable. And that's kind of how I got started. I started MPI. I went to one of their events. Now, granted, this event was the NFL draft of like that year. But we had shared experiences, and I was new. This was 1 month after I quit my job, and I was like, I want to do this. I didn't even realize there was an events industry. I worked in-house at, in a real estate company and did their events. And so when I discovered MPI, and I'm like, all of these things that I just wouldn't have known, it just really opened up my eyes to all of the possibilities. And it started my journey on relationship building. So my advice is join a professional organization, or just go to their events. Sometimes they offer up free events. I think MPI, depending on your chapter, they do like a sip and sign up, or like a free networking after 5 event where you don't have to be a member. I think start with the low hanging fruit and see where that takes you.
All of those are great. I would add to that list of acronyms would also be WISE, Women in Sports and Events. It's another great organization that's in a lot of the big cities around the U.S. For women who work for sports teams, sports agencies, also brands that do anything at sports. And one of the things I remember that cost was probably prohibitive to me. Like when I first started, I was really adverse to trying to like pay for all these things. And so I ended up just volunteering with some of the organizations or the events, to your point, Vanessa, of like getting in the room. That is one that I remember. It was a $700 or $800 ticket to go to this 1-day conference, but I reached out and said, you need volunteers, and I was able to help with registration, which was like two birds, one stone kind of thing, where I'm like, cool, you get to see me in action, and like I know what I'm doing at events, but also I get to get access to this group and be a part of some of the sessions or listen to the talks that I wouldn't have been able to. So you can also reach out and ask about volunteering is another one. If you have the time, since you don't necessarily have the expertise. So we could keep talking about staying relevant. And I would love to, I'm like, in 10 years, what would my answer be? Is LinkedIn still around then? Who knows?
What is your future self, Logan? What's your future name?
Lynette? I feel like I gave it like a really funny, like older person name, like an Edith.
Ooh.
I feel like she's like Edith or something. Yeah. But then I was kind of, I don't feel like I could take Edith too seriously. So then it started to date. It's really like future Logan. Okay. I'm really good at like thinking about, I'm like, future Logan's going to have it made, because current Logan's grinding it out for her. But
that's it.
Yes. But yeah, future Logan / Edith.
I love Edith. And Vanessa / Veronica / I need an older, like, Violetta, or I don't know. I'm gonna think about it and I'll come back to you.
I like it. Yeah, you got some time. But before we wrap up, Vanessa, like, where can listeners find you?
So it's so funny. LinkedIn. That is my main bread and butter. And so find me at LinkedIn / Vanessa Loney, my full name. And please add me. And pro tip is, when you connect with someone else, you almost get tapped into their network. And so I have curated a great network. And so definitely attach yourself to me and see where that leads you.
I love it. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. And Vanessa, you have our bonus tip this week.
Yes, my bonus tip is get a massage when your back is hurting, because I'm trying to power through, but I'm like, just go get the massage. Make the time to get the massage and you will be so much better for it. Go get that massage.
I love it. Yes, listeners, do that bonus tip. You definitely should. I think I had, I can't remember if one of my other guest co-hosts, Ryan, and I talked about it. We both love massages too. It's like a secret to stay insane. So appreciate that one. And that brings us to the end of the episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can connect with us on LinkedIn directly as well. That includes Vanessa. Just let us know right before you hit that connect button. Just type in that little message box that you heard about us through the podcast. And if you want more Better Events content, you can join our private community over on Substack. And as always, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.
Thank you.